Welcome to the final edition of Let's Talk Criterion for February. In this edition, we look at Guilermo Del Toro's Cronos, coming to the collection as a 4K UHD upgrade. Guilermo Del Toro is a well-established director and a staunch supporter of the Criterion collection. We have now got 5 films of his in the collection. The 3 films which combine to make the Trilogia de Guilermo Del Toro, that's Cronos, which we'll be taking a closer look at today, The Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth. It's important to take an overall look at the tragedy trilogy to put Cronos in perspective. A thin line exists in Guillermo del Toro's Spanish-language trilogy, and that's between exaltation and blasphemy and damnation and transcendence. Over the course of Cronos, The Devil's Backbone, and Pan's Labyrinth, characters scurry to justify their wants with religious and political ideology, laundering their wills and their longings through cultural precedent. Now, somewhat lost in these machinations is an elemental sense of morality as well, which the supernatural returns to the fore. Now, sadly, the box set of all 3 films in the trilogy is now out of print in Criterion, but you can still get a copy on eBay and various other aftermarkets at a reasonable price. It's well worthwhile, as it's nicely packaged as well. Now, with Cronos upgrading to 4K, all 3 films are actually available as 4K UHD throughout the world, but not all 3 via the Criterion collection. The Devil's Backbone, for instance, is available as a Sony 4K, and it's only currently available as part of the Sony Modern Classics, and Pan's Labyrinth is a standalone 4K release. Cronos is a 1992 Mexican independent horror drama written and directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring Federico Lupi and Ron Perlman. Now, Cronos is Del Toro's first feature film, and of course the first in several films which he worked with Lupi and Perlman. The body of an alchemist is found dead in rubble. His heart is pierced by a stake, of course. The Cronos device, hidden inside an ancient wooden statue of an archangel, is purchased by an antiques dealer named Jesus Gris. That's, of course, played by Federico Lupi, who finds the diabolical toy and winds it up and watches with terror as it attaches itself to his skin and makes him, he later discovers, immortal. This, of course, is the stuff of classic horror, and Cronos, written and directed by, at the time, a 29-year-old Mexican, combines with it a colourful Latin magic realism. Now, there's also an undercurrent of fatalism and sadness within the film as well. This flows from the relationship of the old antiques dealer and his granddaughter, Aurora, played in the film by Tamara Shanath. She loves the old man, even after an embalmer makes some gruesome alterations on his undead body. But elsewhere in the city, we see a dying industrialist, Claudio Brook, a favourite Mexican actor of Luis Buñuel, obtaining the Journal of the Ancient Spanish Alchemist, and there he learns of the Cronos device. He imports his American nephew, played by Ron Perlman, to track down and obtain the device, setting the plot into motion. Perlman brings a comic element into the film when he whistles "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" in a way that for the first time finds sinister undertones in the tune. But Cronos is not really about plot. It's actually all about character. Now, one of the curious things about immortality, of course, in fiction certainly, is that it almost always seems to be possessed by those unworthy of it. Cronos is a macabre body horror comedy and is perhaps more intriguing than it is frightening. But it has also a hint of steampunk. It looks almost like a feature-length pilot for some sort of cult TV show that never got made. And so Cronos gallops on, in its peculiar way, to a conclusion that's weird without being especially shocking at the same time. But it certainly has a distinctive authorial signature, and that's the work of a very individual filmmaker. Now, although Cronos wasn't a commercial success when it was released, it was, however, well received by critics, and it won 9 Mexican Academy Awards. Now, the success of the film caught the eye of Hollywood, and he was signed on with a major production company to make his next film, and that film was Mimic, released in 1997. Now, though that film also received good reviews, Del Toro was frustrated and furious with constraints put on him by the production company at that time. And because of this, he went on to form his own film company. Free to make his next film as he saw fit, he directed The Devil's Backbone in 2001. This film fared well with critics, but didn't make much money either. Del Toro was fashioning his unique mix of storytelling style, which was to further mature in The Devil's Backbone and, of course, come to fruition in Pan's Labyrinth. This not only satisfied audiences worldwide, but it was also a financial success. Del Toro was raised by his Catholic grandmother, and as a result, Catholicism shows up frequently in his films, even if he's no longer a strict Catholic himself. Now, although his films may not feature an outright religious story in them, they do, however, have religious themes, motifs, or archetypes, and this is often incorporated into his detail-first focus of his characters. Often, Del Toro will create a substantial backstory for his characters, which may not show up in the film at all. Part of this backstory can include religious motivation, as often at least one character in his film is Catholic or religious. But whatever the object in the film, be it a key, a suitcase, or frequently a clock, any item carried by a Del Toro character in one of his films is a vital glimpse into how that character operates, both internally and externally. And more accurate to say, it's the character's connection to that item, not the item itself, that symbolizes their best and worst qualities as they move towards liberation, or indeed towards doom. Movies by nature are meant to be both fantastical and dreamlike, and Del Toro is truly a master at understanding this and subverting our expectations as an audience when we sit down to watch one of his films. And one of his greatest tricks is deceiving the audience into believing certain objects are actually more important than they appear. Now, as a filmmaker, in writing, direction, and of course editing, this is a solid case study into how we should build up and give power to different objects. Characters, indeed, within our films if we make them. Del Toro seldom lets even the tiniest on-screen detail go by without developing its backstory and its inertia in order to contribute to the greater narrative and theme of the film. Now, Cronos gets its 4K restoration on Criterion, courtesy of Les Films du Camélia, in collaboration with the BFI National Archive at l'Immagine Ritrovata. The film is sourced from a scan of the 35mm original camera negative, and the edition comes with a 4K and a separate Blu-ray, which is the same transfer of the film as we had on the 2010 Criterion release. It does show some shortcomings compared to the 4K version. The 4K has a Dolby Vision HDR grading, and that certainly boosts the entire colour gamut and leans to a cooler picture tone with a noticeable increase of yellowish green, which some can find distasteful. But once again, the director has supervised this new 4K restoration. The features on the Blu-ray disc that accompanies the 4K are as follows. Optional original Spanish language voiceover introduction. 2 audio commentaries, one featuring Del Toro himself, and the other with producers Arthur H. Gorson and Bertha Navarro, and the co-producer Alejandro Springal. Geometria, an unreleased 1987 short horror film by Del Toro, finished in 2010 alongside an interview with the director himself. Welcome to Bleak House, a tour by Del Toro of his home office, featuring his personal collections, interviews with Del Toro, cinematographer Guillermo Navarro, and actors Ron Perlman and Federico Lupi. Stills Gallery, which is captioned by Del Toro, a trailer, and as usual, we have a written essay by film critic Maitland McDonough, and excerpts as well from Del Toro's notes for the film. And the cover art for the disc is the same as the original Criterion release. It was designed by Mike Mignola. Now, there's also a UK BFI release on 4K of Cronos. This has considerably more features and has the same Dolby Vision HDR grading. This release comes with a 60-page book, a set of 4 postcards featuring images from the film, a fold-out poster featuring the new artwork by Clément Deneux, and also it boasts a brand new commentary recorded by Jason Wood. Now, this is, for me, where Criterion proves less than good value for money, as they don't repackage their 4K releases generally, and they never add to the original special features. Perhaps they never have to worry to do so. But as far as customer value is concerned, I've seen some Criterion followers acquire the BFI equivalent of the disc. It's important here to give constructive criticism, as there is definitely room for improvement with Criterion in this area. If the price point dictates a product of quality, which it usually does for 4K, then Criterion need to deliver more in this area. They're well known for their special features, and this goes right back to their Laserdisc days. Now, the film Cronos has a running time of 93 minutes and a 185:1 aspect ratio on the 4K disc and a 178:1 on the Blu-ray and on the DVD. The upgrade releases as a 4K Blu-ray combo on Tuesday the 25th of February as existing spine 551. And I would certainly recommend checking out the other 2 films in the trilogy. That's The Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth. Next month on Let's Talk Criterion, we'd feature one of the greatest thrillers ever committed to celluloid, a white-knuckle ride from France's legendary master of suspense, Henri-Georges Clouzot, The Wages of Fear, getting its 4K upgrade in the collection. So until then, from me, as always, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.